Okay, so obviously the first thing to talk about is picking up from where we left off. Ziggy basically wastes no time in tossing Elsie around like a rag doll before Justice comes in to save her. And I'm kind of a little bit weird about this. My mind's kind of a little bit weird about this moment. Because on one hand, there's a little bit of a whiplash effect with this chapter with just how much Elsie was getting dominated in the fight. Like don't get me wrong, Elsie was basically stabbed last chapter, so obviously we knew she wasn't going to put up that much of a fight. But 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 on the but I always kind of thought she would at least put like make it more of an attempt. Like I thought she would be strong enough to make an attempt to put up some kind of a defense. But again, on the flip side of that, she was fatally wounded. So I guess it's kind of one of those things where it's understandable that she wouldn't be able to mount a proper defense against Ziggy, but at the same time, I thought she'd fight back a little bit more than that. I don't know. I was again, it's a little bit weird, but something it was probably just a whiplash effect, but something did feel a little bit off in the first like chunk of the chapter with their fight, and but again, how what also but what did also kind of reinforce that is just how Ziggy was basically tossing around using his Satan gravity. Like that in itself, like Satan gravity is proven to be one of the most powerful of one of the most powerful of the ether gears. So it's like, yeah, mounting a defense against that in itself is also kind of going to be impossible. Um, the other part of this that had me feeling a little that felt a little off is Justice's basically save of Elsie. And again, it's odd because on one hand, Mashima went the route I kind of didn't want him to, with the whole like saving her bridal, being with her being like damsel in distress, saving her bridal style kind of thing. But but on the other hand, the way it was staged and the choices in dialogue that were made with that part of with that scene, it did make me feel a little bit more accepting of it, and it even addressed the complaint I thought I was going to have, which is they escape too easily. But that was immediately fixed by having Ziggy request Aknoella go after them, which, yeah, let's talk about that little conversation for a moment, because if there's one thing I've learned about how Mashima writes in Zero, it is that it is that any kind of is that it's going is is that any kind of threat that's made, it is going to come back around. Is that any kind of threat that's made? Anytime someone issues a threat, that threat is it's not an empty one. It is a threat that's going to come back around and bite someone in the ass. And when it comes to this arc, in some way, and when it comes to this arc, knowing all that, this undoubtedly means to me that Ziggy will throw Aknoella to the wolves in some form or another, and in his attempt to escape Lindard, which also means regardless of how Ziggy does betray Aknoella, he's going to escape from He's not going to escape from Lindard unscathed without losing at least a fraction of the forces he's amassed, or assuming they aren't destroyed beforehand. But you kind of get what I'm saying. Like the threat Aknoella made was fucking real, and she's going to make do on that threat in some form or another. Like it is going to happen, and yeah, Mashima is kind of Mashima has proven he's willing to follow through on those threats as well. So it's just a matter of when and how it happens now. Um, and yeah, from there, the rest of the chapter is basically everyone getting into position and moving forward with the plan, where we see Holy and half the Eden Zero crew confronting Crow, while the others make their way to the core, where they're confronted by Ziggy's Dark Stars, which, yeah, the latter of which I definitely had a feeling was going to be the case, because Ziggy is a lot of things, but a dumbass isn't one of them. He is calculating, and he would not leave the core unprotected under any circumstances. But even then, it's one of those things where, even though I predicted it, actually seeing this matchup is making me question how exactly they'll be able to pull this off. I mean, we know Shiki and the others have gotten stronger, but that's not even in question. But the bigger question is what we haven't seen, like what the Dark Stars are capable of, and that adds an extra amount of fear, concern to this fight. Like it's one of those fights where just the fact that we haven't even seen what the Dark Stars are really capable of, it makes us kind of question if this fight is how they can even survive this fight without us even knowing what they're capable of. Um, that said, I want to backtrack a bit and talk about the scene before the big confrontation, where, on request from Homura, Weiss gets everyone suited up and battle ready, but kinda teases with Rebecca a bit in this chapter by giving her a couple skimpy outfits before getting her battle suit out. And this moment, in my opinion, is Mashima's best, and I do mean best use of fan service. And it's all through a simple line from Weiss. Now you're acting like your old self again. Ever since Rebecca learned about the nature of her power, she's been confused, doubting herself, and just in general, just not. She's kind of let the fear of what her power is capable of just kind of consume her, and just kind of define who she is now. But and but Weiss, and by extension Mashima, knew we kind of needed that moment, not just for the levity, but for Rebecca to be reminded her power doesn't define who she is. Like it's the kind of person we basically saw like yelling and screaming at Weiss for basically putting her in that skimpy outfit to begin with. She's outgoing. She's outgoing. She's a go getter. She basically has those kind of outbursts to like people being like dirty bastards like Weiss is like. That's for better or worse. That's the kind of character Rebecca is. She is that outgoing. She is that. She basically is. She is that outgoing, and she is that kind of like, and she is that like kind of person who just doesn't care what people do or what people say. Like that's who she is, and I like how we kind of I like how that was portrayed through the fan service. It's again a very smart use of it. Um, with that said, let's talk about the confrontation between Holy and Crow, because right out of the gate, I love how it's kind of presented it as if they're giving each other indirect death glares. Like both are here to kill the other, regardless of who they have to step on to get it done. And that does leave me a little bit concerned that we are kind of reaching that moment where, in her hatred, her rage and desire for revenge will use the Eden Zero crew. She'll use the Eden Zero crew as a shield in order to ensure she can kill him. Like she doesn't care how she kills him as long as she does. And just generally, I think we're going to see how far that desire for revenge is going to push her, and how that betrayal is going to play out. And with that being said as well, though, I think that like this is the kind of chapter where, when it came to the Crow and holy moments in the chapter, it made me think we're getting close to like a flashback. Like we are going to, like, I think Mashima is dangerously close to setting up a point where we will see exactly what the history between Crow and Holy exactly is. Like the death glare that kind of indirectly gave each other. That's the kind of thing that does kind of set up for, like, okay, we're gonna get a little bit of backstory and history behind what exactly the connection between these two are. Um, and and but not only that, but once again, this chapter kind of flipped on its head the very idea of who I think might die. Because on one hand, it's still, don't get me wrong, it still feels like Elsie might be slated to get killed in the if after this arc is said and done. Because by that, because the thing is, on it feels like slated to die because I think it's almost necessary in order for Justice's character to make any true change, because one of one of one of Justice's goals this entire time has been to try to achieve justice for what happened so many years ago during the Civil War, and part of that is bringing Elsie to justice. But he's been so focused on that I don't think he's ever really given Lendard any thought at all. And I feel Elsie dying might be the only thing for him to finally find like a new might be the only thing that'll like allow him to find a new meaning in restoring Leonard. But even putting that aside, just the initial confrontation with Crow, it's like one of those things where I'm not sure who's even gonna make it out of that confrontation because the more I think about it, this chapter feels very much like the moment in the Belial Gore arc, in the sense where it, it might have where there might have possibly been a mismatch in terms of the battle assignments. Like it felt like the part of the crew that's confronting Crow should have been the ones who are actually fighting the Dark Stars right now, and the ones fighting the Dark Stars should have been the one facing Crow. But I could be wrong on this, but we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you've enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.